Now, in the last section, we talked about the climate and what affects it. And so we're going to talk in this section about world climate regions and how we define them and some of those climate regions that we'll see throughout our globe. So as we define climate regions, it's important that we understand that we are making generalizations about these type of weather conditions, that it could change a little bit here and there, but generally we are talking about a typical weather condition that lasts for a long period of time. So the two most important things here are temperature and precipitation when it comes to defining a climate region. There are 5 general regions. There is tropical, dry, mid-latitude, high latitude, and highland. And if you know those 5, then you'll be just fine when it comes to the generalization of those regions. Now, the types of climates do get a little more specific, and there are 11 of these, and I would encourage you to take really good notes as far as what makes each of them a little bit different. So we begin with tropical wet. For this particular climate, the average temperature is 80 degrees, and their rainfall can be somewhere around 80 inches per year. And typically they will have sunny mornings with rain almost every afternoon. And you can almost count on it every single day that they will have some sort of rain in the afternoon. The tropical wet and dry is where they will have a rainy season in the summer and a dry season in the winter. And again, they're going to have a lot of rainfall during that wet season in the winter time, or excuse me, in the summertime, but yet not have a whole lot during the winter time. Semi-arid would be a great place for agriculture because their rainfall averages about 16 inches per year. Not too much, but not too little. They have very hot summers, sometimes mild or cold winters, depending upon what elevation or depending upon what part of the globe that they're in. And so because of their really warm summers and because of the milder, maybe sometimes cold winters, they can plant crops during that warm time, and it does very, very well. Now, our fourth of these regions is the desert. And deserts can be either hot or cold. We often think of them as very, very warm. Think of the sandy desert out in the middle of nowhere. But deserts don't have to be warm. They can be cold. Because we define these by the amount of precipitation they get, a desert is characterized as less than 10 inches of rain per year. Mediterranean is our fifth. This is going to have a dry, very hot summer and a wet, cool winter. And this is also very good conditions for farming. Our sixth is the marine west coast. Usually very cloudy, foggy, damp would characterize this particular region. They usually have very consistent temperatures throughout the year. It's very good for industrialization. In number 7, we have humid subtropical. It's where you have long periods of heat. Generally, we'll see this on the east coast of continents, and this area sees a lot of hurricanes when we're talking about the humid subtropical. So long periods of heat, and generally on the east coast of the continents. Then we have number 8 is humid continental. There are a variety of temperatures here and a variety of rainfall in this particular region, but they have 4 distinct seasons and a constant change in weather. So again, 4 very distinct seasons, lots of different temperatures, lots of amounts of rainfall, anywhere from a lot to a little bit. The number 9 is the subarctic. As we continue moving further and further north here, we will see the subarctic is characterized by evergreen forests. A lot of these are seen in Canada and Russia, and they'll have very, very cold winters, and summers will only be cool. They don't really get very warm. They'll typically have somewhere between 5 and 8 months of winter. That's a lot of winter. Again, that's a lot of winter. Not where I would generally want to be. But we move further north and we would have the tundra. This is number 10. And this is going to be so cold that you're not going to see a lot of trees grow in the tundra. So it's going to be pretty flat, almost treeless, near the Arctic Ocean. There's very little precipitation here. The permafrost is the soil that's constantly frozen. It doesn't ever thaw out. And so there's a lot of permafrost here in the tundra. In the ice cap, this is number 11. There is snow and ice all the time. It's constantly frozen. It never thaws out. In fact, it's so cold that it doesn't snow. And so for that reason, it's called the polar desert, because they have less than 10 inches of rain per year. This is what I was talking about before with the desert. It doesn't have to be hot and sandy and dry. It just has to be dry. So the polar desert, less than 10 inches of rain per year up here near the ice cap. Now, in this final section, we're going to talk about vegetation regions. That's right, vegetables. Not vegetables, vegetation. That's right. Okay, so vegetation regions are natural environments that allow humans to work, to farm, to live. So it's important that we do have stuff like vegetables, so eat them because they're good for you. Now, an ecosystem is an interdependent community of plants that work together to support life. So it's important that we understand how all these work together and that we appreciate all of these plants that help us to be able to live. Now, a biome is the ecosystem of a region. And as we look at different biomes, there are three that we're going to talk about in this particular unit. The first one are forest lands, and they're categorized by the type of trees that they support. There are two types of trees here that we're going to focus on. The first one is deciduous. These are broadleaf leaves in trees like maple trees, oak trees, birch trees. You may see some of these out in your front yard, out in the woods. We see a lot of these around our area. The rainforest is one of the most dense populations of deciduous trees. Now, this isn't a tropical zone, but they're going to see a lot of broadleaf trees, a lot of deciduous trees. Now, the second type of tree is a coniferous tree. They have cones that hold their seeds and generally are characterized by needle leaves. And you'll see this with a lot of evergreen type trees. But both of these make up the forest lands. Now, the second type of biome that you need to know are grasslands. And there's a savanna that is called, that is known for the flat, treeless plains of the tropical region. Now, the second type that you need to know is a grassland. And the first type of grassland is called a savanna. And typically this is in a tropical region. And what we need to understand about a savanna is it's usually flat, does not have a whole lot of trees to it, almost like a plain or just a treeless field, maybe you think of it that way, that would characterize a savanna. Now, in the northern hemisphere, we don't typically call it a savanna, but we would call it a steppe or a prairie. That might be a little more familiar to those of us living here in the North America region. Now, the third type of biome that you need to know here is the desert and tundra. And any type of vegetation that's living here is usually low-lying to the ground. And it's that way because it needs to be able to withstand long periods of dry conditions. So they're not going to grow up to be real tall trees like we would see in maybe a forest land. So again, with the desert and tundra, any type of vegetation there is going to be low to the ground, very short, and a lot of ground cover there in that particular section.